final session of the LTC's Back to School kickoff featuring G Suite for Education. Excited to wrap up a great day of learning. It's absolutely flown by. I can't believe how fast it's gone. So thank you to those of you who stuck with us all day. We're wrapping up with a fantastic session today from Ben. Just a couple quick reminders. We are recording this webinar. It'll be available on the website actually much sooner than I originally anticipated. Should be available later on this afternoon instead of tomorrow. So I'm getting those added over as well as the presentation links. So you should be able to see these later on this afternoon. If you have any questions during the session, please just throw them in the chat. Joe from the previous session and myself will be kind of moderating the chat. Make sure you switch it so that panelists and attendees can see them. It helps with kind of clarifying the chat. So we'll be in there moderating, and Ben Sondgeroth, RETC, lead RETC from the northern region of the state is here. So Ben, when you're ready, go ahead and take us away.
All right, thanks, Brian. And as I answer that, if my phone rings, it hasn't rang all day, then it goes off. That's all good. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the last session today. So I'm really excited for you guys to be here with us and to kind of learn and continue to learn as we have done all day long. It has been a wonderful day, and a huge shout out to the other RETCs that presented today, and then of course Annie Nash from Google, who presented earlier this morning. So thank you guys. I know we've got a lot of people that have been with us all day long, and even over the lunch hour and everything. So thank you very much for hanging out with us today and learning about Google. So today's session, this afternoon's session, I guess, the last one we're culminating with, is one of my favorites. It is all about Hyperdocs. So this one is something that I'm pretty passionate about. If you've heard me speak before, you know I get to be pretty passionate about things. But this one in particular, I really, really enjoy. And so if you were with me for my classroom session this morning, we're going to kind of operate in the same manner where I'm going to share a link out to my slides. It will link to the presentation mode just so that way we don't overwhelm the system. We're at couple hundred people right now, so I want to make sure that we don't overload my doc and everybody has access to it. So I've published it to the web. You will get the link here. So if you want to follow along during the session, you can have that link. And at the end of the session, I will link to you the slides. That's the view only link to the slides. That's a little bit easier to navigate, one you can save to your Google Drive and you guys can have to use as a resource. These slides are chock full of resources. And so, I've curated just tons of examples on how to use Hyperdocs in the classroom, ones that you can just open up, make a copy of, and utilize yourself. So I want to make sure that everybody does have access to these files because it's kind of a little hidden gold mine, treasure trove, if you will, of Hyperdocs. So like I said, that's the presentation view, that's the published to the web view, but I will be sharing the kind of view only view of the slides. It's a little easier to click on at the end of the session today. So with all that being said, we go ahead and jump into present mode here. And if you have if you have a question, drop it in the chat, and Joe and Brian will take care of those there. And make sure, as Joe I think put in there, Brian iterated it, but we had good discussion in Joe's session just last hour. However, people were choosing all panelists and not all panelists and attendees, and so people were kind of just talking to us. We want that conversation to be between everybody, so just make sure you choose all panelists and attendees, so that way you can help answer questions that if you have experience using one of the tools, you can do. So all right, so let's take our classroom to hyperspeed, and let's look at how we can use the Hyperdocs in the blended learning environment. First things first, if you haven't been with us yet today, if this is your first session, my name is Ben. I'm Ben Sondgeroth, as Brian said, lead regional education technology coordinator for LTC North. You can see my contact information on there. Give me a follow on Twitter. Send me an email if you have any questions about any resources that I shared today. If you're in the northwest quadrant of the state where you see it in orange there, feel free to reach out. If you're not in that quadrant, feel free to reach out anyways. I'm happy to help. That's what I'm paid to do. So, all right, let's get going. So what's a Hyperdoc? Like, that's the biggest question here. Is you might be looking at this and saying, I don't know what a Hyperdoc is, or I'm confused at the lingo, at the terminology. And I'm here to tell you that you've probably all done something similar to this. You've all put links into a Hyperdoc, into a Google Doc before therefore creating at its most basic level, a Hyperdoc. Hyperlinks, Google Doc, combine them together, Hyperdoc. Now, it's more than that, and we're going to get into that. But that at its most basic level is what a Hyperdoc is. It's an interactive learning experience for our students, okay? So how can we take something like a Google Doc and transform it into something that's more than just text on a paper or text on a word processor? Or how can we take a Google slideshow and transform it to just more than just a presentation tool? How can we make a map interactive? How can we leverage Google Forms to combine with Google Sheets to make interactive, clickable resources for our students? We're turning all of those things into interactive learning activities that become student-centered, thus the concept of a Hyperdoc. And one of the things with this presentation is we're not going to just focus only on Google Docs. This is going to transition across all of the Google apps. So we're going to look at docs, slides, drawings, forms, sheets, everything. We're going to try our best to get through them all. And we're looking at ways that we can transform teaching and learning into this engaging student-centered environment. Because when we're in a situation of remote learning, blended learning, hybrid learning, we need to make artifacts that our students can use that kind of collect all the resources or curate all the resources that we're doing for a particular activity and narrow them down into one place. So I know Brian was getting some questions from people asking about, is this applicable to the elementary level, or is it just a high school level type activity? I've probably got more examples of elementary in this slide deck than I do high school, because it is so applicable at the elementary level, and it is extremely applicable at the high school level. So, you know, we're looking at this from a K-12 perspective. How can we engage our students using Google tools and bringing the outside world into them? Okay, so that's what we're looking at with a Hyperdoc. And then we have this concept of blended learning. So how can we leverage, what are the benefits of creating a Hyperdoc in a blended learning environment? Well, there are many. You know, if you think about this, and I think one of the, before the term Hyperdocs was coined. So the Hyperdocs term was coined by the Hyperdocs gals. You can find them at hyperdocs.co. They have I have a link, I think, on a slide up here, kind of talking about, they wrote the book, the Hyperdoc Handbook. And they kind of coined this term in 2015, I think was right around when that book was released. That was the first time I had heard of the word Hyperdoc before. And, you know, really, like, if you were doing something like I was teaching before 2015, and the first quote unquote kind of Hyperdoc activity I did was a web quest. Hey kids, here's a website. Here's the link to it. Click on it. Now answer the questions based off that website. And it was interactive because they could click on the link, type in the questions, click on the link, type in the questions, or type in the answers. So, you know, that was kind of the base model of a Hyperdoc. And then we're going to just blow it up and make it a lot bigger as we go through some of our examples here this afternoon with everybody. So what does it look like for blended learning? Well, the cool thing about the Google tools is they allow for collaboration. Okay, so immediately we're taking a blended learning environment that, you know, kind of takes something where it's a one-on-one situation. So even though it's student-centered, if the kids aren't together, sometimes we lose that inability, or we have the inability to allow them to collaborate. And so a Hyperdoc, the concept of a Hyperdoc creates that collaboration. So we might have students sharing multiple materials into one Google Doc, or collaborating all together on a Google slideshow. Even though they're learning remotely, they're sheltering in place. Hopefully we don't have to do that again, but, you know, who knows? It's 2020. We don't know what's going to happen. But they're able to collaborate and share resources and work together and create and build inside of these Google tools. That's one of the benefits of a Hyperdoc. That concept, we build it out, we allow them to collaborate, we allow them to share, we allow them to curate. It also allows for us, and you're going to see this in the examples that we'll show shortly, to curate lots of different resources for our students in one area. So you saw my Google Classroom presentation this morning. You saw I was able to add a YouTube video to an assignment. I could add links to an assignment. The problem is all of those things are stored kind of in that Google Classroom assignment. And so if I want my students to click on one of those links and do some reading and then answer some questions, or, you know, create something in a slideshow, they have to kind of go to Google Classroom, open a new tab, go to their Google Doc, go back to Classroom, open up another new tab, go back to their Google Doc. Well, what we're trying to do is create a document that houses all of those links inside of it. And then the students can click just inside using that Google Doc or a slideshow or whatever to open up those links directly there and then fill the information in. So instead of like having 10 or 15 links housed inside of Google Classroom, we house those 10 or 15 links in a table in a Google Doc, curate it all in one place, less clicks, less paths to get distracted on, and we keep it all in one spot. So I think that's a really important thing in a blended environment, because you might not be there to answer questions, right? So like the kid can't just say, hey, Mr. Sondgeroth, I have a question on where we're supposed to go on this website. But you can put the specific link or the link to the activity inside of that Google Doc for that student to follow. So I think that's one of the great benefits here. We're also able with Docs to allow voice and choice. So one of the things that I like about this concept is that anything you make in the Google world is a website. Whether you make a document, that's got a unique URL. Your students make a slideshow, that's got a unique URL. That can be shared back into a Google Doc. You make a Google MyMap, you can publish it to the Maps store, you know, or you can publish it to Google Maps, and kids can take that link, put it into a Google Doc, put it into a slideshow. So you can create a curation area for student work to have their own ability to create whatever they want to create. So it's a really cool place because we can make these Hyperdocs and we can allow students to demonstrate their learning in any way they see fit, but we can bring it all back into one central location. So imagine this, my students are all in charge of making an assignment, and I used the presidential cabinet earlier, I'll probably show you that example here in a little bit. They're in charge of making presentations on a cabinet position. So what I'll do is create a presidential cabinet Google Doc, put a table into it, put every kid's name in one column of a table, and then have them share that with everybody, allow them all to edit, and then I can have each kid make their own individual presentation and then copy and paste that link into that Google Doc. Now, every kid has access to view every other student's presentation. They have the ability to look at everybody else's work. And if they're in a blended environment, you know, they maybe won't be able to stand up at the front of the room and give a presentation, but I can at least click on Brian's and I can see what he put into his presentation. So there's a lot of different ways that we can kind of encourage this collaboration, student voice and choice. They can make whatever they want to make in any Google tool. If it's not a presentation, hey, make an Adobe Spark video, grab the link, put it into the Google Doc. Like however you can share it, put it into that Google Doc so we can all collaborate and look at it together. That kind of just goes in the next step of fostering creativity. Okay, so get creative with it, use different tools, fonts, sizes, colors. You'll see that a lot here in a couple of minutes. And then the last thing, I'm a big proponent of reflection. Okay, so I think it's an incredibly important process of the learning experience for students. And so if we're putting content together, so Joe just talked about the flipped classroom model last session. And in that model, what we're asking our students to do is to, you know, watch a video, watch content, and then take that content then, bring it back to the class the next day. Well, what I might do is curate a lot of my videos into a Google slideshow, share those slides with my students, and then at the end, at the bottom of those videos, put a little text box in that just says, reflect on this. And then I've created a video notebook for my students to then write their reflections in on the videos that I've shared with them to watch. And so that's just kind of one way that we want to encourage and foster that reflection component. And we can do that, you know, using a Hyperdocs situation. So that's kind of the why behind this for blended learning. But really, it goes across all learning. You know, it's kind of like when I started out Google Classroom today, and really all the topics we covered today, you know, they're important for remote learning. They're important for blended learning, but they're perfectly fine if we're back to normal at some point, hopefully in the future, to use all of these tools with your kiddos. So let's get started with Hyperdocs. Okay, so that's kind of the why behind it. Now let's actually look at how we build these. Okay, so there's some questions I think that everybody needs to ask themselves. It's like, what's your kind of Google preference with this? Should you start small and slow? Depends on your skill set. Okay, so if you're a Google Power user, jump right in, start changing backgrounds, all that type of stuff. Go ahead. But if you're just getting started on this concept, don't be afraid to start small and slow. Like maybe find those basics that you need. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. And then just build something out simple for your kids. Okay, you don't need to go and get intimidated by some of these awesome templates that are out there on the internet. That's one thing I always like to encourage teachers. Just because you find it on somebody's blog doesn't mean that that's always how it has to look, right? If somebody put it on a blog post and they have enough like capacity and knowledge and to start a blog and to share what they're doing, they're probably very, very good at creating a Hyperdoc or a Hyper slideshow or something. That doesn't mean you have to be that good or at that top level to create a similar activity, okay? So keep that type of stuff in mind, because that's the last point here is, should you start with a pre-created template? You don't have to go to that website that starts with a T, has a middle initial of a P, and then ends with a T to find this type of stuff. Don't go there. Go to my slides. The very last slide has a Padlet wall that has like a billion, that might be exaggerated, but hundreds of examples of how to use Hyperdocs and free templates to use. Okay, you can find these things for free on the internet. Okay, and then you copy them and then you use them on your own. You adjust and use. So just some ideas to get started with here. So the process of this, okay? One of the processes here is some stuff to consider. The biggest thing that I can encourage with Hyperdocs is using tables, okay? Because Hyperdoc curates lots of resources. That's kind of its core. It curates outside links, it curates student-created content, it just curates information. And information, especially in a Google Doc, can be hard to kind of delineate, okay? A Google Doc by its nature is very much a word, it's just a word processor. So everything flows kind of in that linear fashion. And what we want to do is break that up so that our students understand, hey, when I go to this site, I need to do this and this. And then when I go to this site, I'm going to do this and this. How do you do that in a Google Doc? How do you do that in a Google Slideshow? Tables, okay? So by inserting tables, we're able to clearly and define what website goes with what question and what answer, or what website goes with this piece of information you need to find and this piece of information you need to find. And you can really make sure your kids know that this is the spot to answer those questions. So it takes it away from like a question 1, comment, question 2, answer, question 3, answer, and really kind of organizes it a lot better. So tables are huge. You can insert images into tables. That makes life a lot easier too. So just some ideas. Use tables. And then as you grow, change your font styles, change your type, change your text colors, change your background colors. Like, get creative with the process. Like, but I always like to say, I'm a high school history teacher at heart. I like Times New Roman and 12-point font, 1-inch margins, and single and half spacing. Because I had to write every single stinking paper my entire university career doing that. Now, has Google warped my brain into Arial 11? It has. That's okay. But that's kind of my point. I like plain stuff. High school history, I'm just boring. However, I have a creative streak in me too, and I've seen stuff that elementary teachers do. Awesome. And high school teachers. I don't want to leave out the creative high school teachers, but like, you don't have to put in the fancy fonts and colors and things to get the same process out of your students, but they do make it a little bit more engaging perhaps. Okay. All right. So this is just a skill set checklist. I'm not going to go through this. This is something that you guys can kind of look at. You know, do you know how to make a copy of a file? Do you know how to distribute it out to your students using Google Classroom? Like those types of things. If you don't know how to do that, you can watch the recording for my session this morning. But you know, like those are kind of, these are just some checklists that as you're reviewing this presentation, maybe go back into it, look through it, see if you can check these boxes, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll at least get the idea and the concept with how to do it. So let's talk tools now. Okay, so we're going to go into, for the next 30 minutes that we have, we're going to kind of dive into the pros and cons of using each one of the tools. Okay, so the first one up is Google Docs. Kind of the namesake of the Hyperdoc is using a Google Doc to create a Hyperdocs experience. It makes sense. So it's probably the easiest, arguably, to kind of get going with, because you can drop your tables in, you can drop your links in, you know, you can add in some simple functions. But it's the easiest for your kids to probably adapt to because they know how to type into a word processor. There's nothing crazy about that. Some cons, well, you're just in a word processing environment. So you're very limited to what you can do. You can't insert videos, so that's a bummer. You can insert links to videos, but they don't live in the document itself, especially because there was an awesome add-on that was DocuTube, and RIP because they just discontinued it, because that was a way you could watch a YouTube video inside of a Google Doc, and yeah, it has passed on into the netherworlds of Google add-ons. So that's sad. Tear. Everybody pour one out for DocuTube because it's gone. Images can be tough to use. That's why I suggest using tables and images together, because that's a way you can at least make an image stay in one spot. I'll demonstrate that here in a little bit. If you put images in, you got to wrap the text, you break the text, they kind of float all over, and it can just be clunky at best. So there's some pros and cons to it, but in the end, you actually create some really cool Hyperdocs here. So let me show you some examples here. So this is that presidential cabinet assignment that I was talking about before. Okay, so this is one that I would maybe start. So this is the template that I could send out to my kids. And in this example, I actually have, I'm actually using this as a group of 4. Okay, so I'm sending it out to a group of 4 students. I could easily expand this out to, you know, the whole class if I wanted to. But basically what I'm doing is giving them the instructions at the top. Okay, so what do you want to know about the cabinet? Here's a link to the YouTube video that they can click on, watch the video from the White House on the cabinet, the history of the cabinet. And then now what I'm asking them to do is, after watching the overview with your partners, explore a different department and create a slides presentation for each department, answering the questions below. Okay, so the questions here, what's the name, title? So they want to put, I want them to put all of this information into a Google slideshow. So they're basically creating a presentation about a cabinet position. And then when they're done, they have to use this table to drop in their name, their slides presentation, and then I actually get a little more creative with the other one and ask them to make a screencast of it. Okay, so I'm organizing things via the table. And then down here, this is just a quick table asking them to go to the website, the White House's website, and then list the other cabinet positions. So they might pick 4, but there's going to be 12 others. So I'd like them to go in, add those other cabinet positions as well. So that's kind of like what I'm sending out my kids. I could obviously expand this out, change colors, make it fancy. Like I said, I was a history teacher, government teacher. This worked for me. Okay, what's it look like from a student perspective? Okay, so this is one that I kind of just made up, but you can see kind of how this looks when the students turn it in. So they're working on this collaboratively. Okay, so we've got Avra, Brian, Ben, and Joe. Brian and Ben, welcome to my class. Or Brian and Joe, welcome to my class. Okay, inside of here, what we've done is we have now, they still get this. I've sent it out to them. I can send this out to Google through Google Classroom. If you remember, I could create an assignment and then differentiate who I could send this to. So I could create, 4 different assignments and cover 16 kids, or I could send this out and then put it as view only, and then have each group kind of designate a group captain, if you will. So I can say, okay, this 4 of you, you guys need to pick a group captain. That group captain has to make a copy of my document and then share it with your group mates. Okay, so Brian might become our group captain. He opens up the Google Doc and Google Classroom. He then makes a copy of it, shares it with Joe, myself, and Avra, and then we're able then to collaborate on this doc, and then he submits it, or we all could submit it back into Google Classroom. So that's another way that you can kind of differentiate group work. You could either assign the groups yourself. That's going to create several different assignments though, or designate a group captain to, make a copy and distribute out amongst the group themselves. So inside of here, what's this look like? Well, if we click on Brian here, we'll click on Joe. You can see Joe has the Department of Energy. Me, I've got, well, these are all kind of messed up. These links have broken. Avra's got the Department of Education, but we can click on these and we can see the actual presentation. Here's a fun, so this is new. You can open up a preview of the slideshow inside before you actually have to open it up, and you can actually click through it. So it's kind of a cool little Google Docs trick now that you don't have to open up the full slideshow to see it. So as a teacher, if you don't want to have a million tabs open, you just can click on that link. Don't double click it. Don't click here. Just go open preview, and then you can click through it, and you don't have to like open up a whole new tab and load a bunch of tabs across the top and slow your browser down. So kind of a new fun Google hint there. Okay. And then you can see over here, we actually might ask them to make a screencast and Screencastify of their slides. So in blended learning, kids can't stand up, maybe we're in a hybrid situation, kids can't stand up in front of the class and give their presentation. So they make the presentation and then they record themselves using Screencastify, and then they bring in the link to their slides or to their presentation here, and then I can click on it and I can watch this video of the slideshow, and then now all the students can also watch everybody else's presentation. So you're kind of making that remote learning, blended learning environment come to life because you're giving kids access to all this stuff. If they just submitted the video to you in Google Classroom, none of the other students would be able to see it, okay? So if you want all the other kids to watch the videos, this is a good way to do that, all right? And then you can see they just filled the table out down here with all the links to the other cabinet positions, okay? So that's just one kind of in-depth example. I want to show you a couple of more. So I really like this chocolate milk example here. So I didn't make this one. This one was Carly Mora. She's kind of also like a Hyperdocs gal. She's really good. She's got lots of examples that she shares on Twitter all the time. But this one is an awesome example of using multiple resources and then using a table to organize them, okay? So for example, in this, they're debating on chocolate milk in schools. So I used to do this with my kids all the time. I would say, I only want you to look at these resources because I don't trust you to go to a Google search engine and next thing you know, you're on like some crazy like website saying that chocolate milk is brainwashing us, because those types of things exist, especially in the world today. So I want to tell you, go to these news sources, like go to the Channel 9 News, like watch that video. But then she has a table set up where the link is here for them to watch, a cell for them to type in what their claim is, what's their evidence, and then any bias. And this is going to be much more organized than if I just put in a question in a Google Doc, and then I would have to go through and try to find all the answers. So this is a very much an organized way of giving them the content and then answering the questions and keeping everything inside of that table, okay? So that's what I really like about this process, is being able to kind of organize everything. And then down here at the bottom, you see she has a performance task to write an argumentative essay. So they've gone through all the research, now write the essay. And you're probably looking at this like, how do you do a text box in a Google Doc? Well, let's open up a new Google Doc and I'll show you. Because while this looks like a text box that you would draw into a slideshow, what it is it's just a table. So you would go to Insert, Table, and then do 1 by 1 or 1 by 2, and then take this bottom box, drag it down, and now you could have the question here, or prompt, and then the student answer here. And so you're really, again, signifying where the responses should go, making sure everything's organized and put into one place. So I really like that, because then it's not just all over the map, right? So a really cool example there. I do want to also point out there's a really good one here. This freckle juice one I like a lot. So what she's done here in this one, and this is for 3rd grade. So again, I said elementary examples. 3rd grade, this is for the book Freckle Juice by Judy Blume. And the document is just really well done because she's got a thing here for spelling. Okay, so you know, take out the Freckle Juice spelling list, place it face down on the desk, flip it over, study the word. If you want to turn off spelling, so I've had that a couple times. Obviously, there's a spell check in Google Docs. If you go to Tools, Spelling and Grammar, you can uncheck the spelling and grammar. Now, there's no, like, as far as I know, no default way to like do this for all kids. But this would be one way where you're like, hey, just do this for now. You're practicing your spelling, like turn off the spelling and grammar check. So then the little red squiggly line won't populate. But so we have our spelling list there. And then you see here, we actually have a Flipgrid activity that she's put in. So read the sentence and then record the meaning of each word. Down here, a read and watch. So if we click on this, it actually goes to a YouTube video of someone reading the book in the chapter. So that's awesome. And then there's questions. And again, this looks intimidating, right? You're like, how the heck did we do this? Like, it's alternating colors, like all this stuff. So again, that's where you just have to get past the show, okay? So if you're confused as to how to do that, get past the fanciness of this and realize it's just a table. This is just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cell table. That's it, 1 by 6 down. This is just a one table that she's put in. So you've done the insert, table, and 1, and then now you have, and actually I went table inside of a table there, so that was a little bit of an inception, but that's what we do. And then to do the colors, you actually just click in the table here, and then you have a fill button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And if you wanted to get fancy with it, now you can fill the background colors of your table. So it doesn't have to be that like super fancy, right? Like we just break this down. It's just a table, but it's really well organized. Okay, so that way the kids aren't typing all over the place. And you can see we get down here at the bottom, and then she's got an activity here to, this is where that collaboration and external creation comes in. So create a new Google Doc, create a juice that will change the appearance of a person, and then paste the link to the doc in. So we're then asking the kids to take this link, put it into that document. So that way the teacher has everything in one spot. We're not chasing around 7 different activities inside of Google Classroom. Everything's in one doc. We can click on it, we can do it. Now, one of the things you'll have to teach your kiddos, sharing permissions, because they're not creating them inside of Classroom. So you would say, hey, if you make a Google Doc, make sure you share it with me before you put it into that Hyperdoc, okay? Or like we showed this morning, have them make it in Classroom and still put the link into the other one. Either way works. So there's a lot of other examples here. In the interest of time, we're gonna move on, but there's a lot of really cool ways that we can look at Hyperdocs, but again, it all comes back to tables, okay? That's what I'm looking at here. All right, let's go to this one. This one's fun. So we've got the base covered. We've got that kind of Google Docs example in. And actually, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up my #1 biggest thing that I like to show teachers, and quite possibly one of my largest pet peeves as a technology instructor. So I have 2. One is not knowing how to shift your Chrome profile in between different users. That's something that, you know, if you can learn how to do that, that will save your life. I mean, it's like the coolest thing of all time. I have a YouTube video on it, so if anybody needs that, I don't know, it's on my YouTube channel, so Brian or Joe might be able to find it and put it in there. But that's one. But the other one is putting in dirty links, okay? Not dirty links, like dirty links, get that thought out of your head, people. I know where you went with that. But I'm thinking about ugly links, okay? So these things that are unclean, they look at them and you're like, I want you to go to this Google form to answer something. So you go to the Google form, you grab the link, and then you put it into the document, and it looks like that. And it's awful. That just drives me up the banana land right there. So what you need to do is clean it up, okay? Clean it up, do this. Here's your Hyperdocs, just 101. Let me zoom in so that way people can actually see this a little bit better. So I want you to go to this Google form. So I'm gonna type in the text, Google form, okay? And then now I'm gonna highlight it. And with that highlight, I'm gonna do my shortcut, okay? So there's 4 ways you can do this. You can insert a link up here. You can go to insert link here. You can right click on it and go to link, or just remember this, Control K. Or if you're on a Mac, Command K. This works across every Google tool, including Gmail, okay? So I'm gonna highlight it. I'm gonna do a Command K because I'm on a Mac. I get asked, put in a link. I paste in my link, apply it, and now I have a clean link. This is a pretty link. This is a nice link. We want this link because now I don't take up 2 lines. I take up 1 little space, and my kids click on it, they now go to it. Now here's a really cool Google update, okay? Google knew that I didn't like this, okay? So what Google has done is they have taken the ability for you to grab a link from a website, okay? Paste it into a Google Doc. Ugly. However, if you click on that link, notice down at the bottom, it will say, replace the URL with this title. And you say, yes, please. And you don't have to type in the text. You just click that little blue box that says, do you want to replace it with the title of the website? And you're like, I do. And then it does it. So you don't even have to know my trick of like Command K or anything like that. Now, sometimes is it annoying? Like it won't work right? Sure. But you find a nice one, like that's perfect. So just that's a mainstay of the Hyperdocs process is inserting links into Google files. So by doing that, by knowing how to Command K it, by knowing how to insert a link, you don't have to use Command K or Control K. You can use the link button. That's okay. Just please no dirty links. We like clean links, okay? All right, okay, so that was Ben's soapbox on links inside of things. I'm a nerd, I'm sorry, it just is what it is. Okay, let's talk Google Drawings. Some of the pros with Google Drawings. Easier to use images and text together, okay? It's easier to keep everything in one page. There's not multiple pages. With drawings, you get one blank canvas with which you can work, okay? So you can incorporate lots of different resources into one page. You can make images more clickable, okay? So we can do this in slides as well. So I know there's probably some of you out there that are like, this is like that Bitmoji classroom or my, you know, whatever. I'm like, yeah, it is. That's in slides most of the time because we're going to talk about that process in a little bit. But with drawings, we can do kind of something similar. It's just one slide though, or it's one page instead of multiple pages. So it's a little cleaner to look at. So let me show you a couple of examples. Here's one of the signing of the US Constitution, okay? And actually I'm going to go into my Google Drawings folder to show you this one. This is the right one. So this is what I would send out to my students, okay? So I have in the drawing, I've got just a text box over in the gray area giving my students the instructions. I have the image of the signing of the Constitution that I really want them to dive into. So they have to identify 3 figures from the drawing. And then I'm going to send them down to a see, think, wonder routine using text boxes. What do you see in the picture? What does it make you think about? And what questions does it raise? What do you wonder about? Okay, so that's the see, think, wonder routine. Awesome thinking routine. Harvard's Project Zero. They are amazing for in-depth thinking on topics. So what does that look like from the student perspective? The student gets done accomplishing it. What they've done is nothing too crazy. You can see they've put in the squares over top. So they went into a shape, square, and then put the square over top of the person. Uh-oh, covered up, not great. Let's change that. Fill color, transparent. Still can't see it. Lines are black, not great either. Let's change it to white, stands out a little bit better. And then the border weight up to 3 font or 3 size. Now we can see, okay? So we've got that over here, but what we want to do is we want to make it clickable. I want to click on George Washington and I want to find out about George Washington. Any shape, I'm going to bring that one back. If you highlight it in a Google drawing, you can do our Command K and you can link to that shape, all right? So here we've got George Washington. So what do? We click on him, voila. We now have a link out to George Washington. So I just took this link, copied it, brought it back in. I'm going to unlink this so you can kind of see that process. Clicked on the shape, did a Command K, paste the link in, applied it, and now when you click on the characters, or not the characters, the founding fathers, you're able to go to a website about them. Okay, you can also easily incorporate this as like, go to a presentation about them that you made. You know, make this like, if anybody used ThingLink in the past, this is the way you use ThingLink, but with Google Drawings. Okay, so combining images, links, and text all into one fun, happy family inside of Google Drawings. One other example I want to show, do you want to make this like completely like cool? So like you don't even want the box? Do this. This is like 2.0, but super neat. Click on that box, and instead of having it be a white background or a white border, change the border color to transparent too. And then you're like, oh, there's no box there. But if you just click on Washington, you get the link. So now you can just click like on everybody. Like you could click on all the people and you could get a link to those people if you wanted to. So just kind of something a little bit, you know, a fun way to get it creative, okay? So that's Google Drawings. There's a couple of other examples in here, but I want to make sure we get to some of the other tools. So like there's an interactive map of the United States, and then also the parts of the cell. So the parts of the cell is one that I hid all of the shapes. And if you click on anything, you get a link. You click on the nucleus, you get a link to the nucleus. But I didn't actually create the image. It's just, you know, the picture. So I just put a shape on top of it, turned it transparent, inserted the link. It's kind of fun. So that's Google Drawings. I've got a lot to say about slides. I've done full mornings on Google Slides, so it's unfortunate that we can't I've only got like, 10 minutes left before we're done. Who organized this thing and only gave everybody 50 minutes to talk? Wait, yeah, that's I just like to talk. So here we go. Let's talk about the pros and cons of slides. Pros, you get more than one page. So if you liked what you were doing in drawings and you wanted to expand it out, put it into slides, because you can have multiple pages and do the same thing. I can link pictures. I want to click on this slides icon, Command K, insert a link. You know what? I want to link from, if you click on the slides icon and you want to go somewhere else in the slideshow, you can do that in Google Slides. Can't do that. Well, you can do it in Docs, but can't do that in drawings because there's only one place to go. So if I click on that, go to slides in this presentation, and then say, you want to go to slide 13. That's just the next slide, so that's not a great example. How about 15? Apply it, and now if I click on that, I just link to the next slide, or I link to whatever slide is in that particular slideshow. So you can interlink inside of a slideshow. So you're not, Hyperdocs doesn't have to be like linking to outside sources. You can create stuff that just jumps all over your own slideshow, which is some of the examples we're going to show in a little bit. One of the problems, another pro, you can insert video into Google Slides. So images, video, audio, all can be inserted into a Google slideshow for your kids to be able to react and listen to. No word wrap though around images. So that's one of the bummers. Like, you have to really keep it kind of segmented. Text here, image here. It doesn't like wrap around. You have to get kind of weird with your text boxes and stuff, but a minor inconvenience for a powerful tool. Okay. Here's a lot of examples, lots of stuff to kind of jump through. I'm not going to go into any of these. I would suggest looking at the Hyperdoc template for a novel. This one is really neat. It's a way that you can create basically an interactive notebook that your kids can fill out as they read a novel. Okay, so you're making that, you're inserting videos, Flipgrid links, stuff like that into the slideshow that your kids would then fill out and and have access to as they're reading the novel along. We talk about collaboration a lot. We want to make sure we cover that. This is an example of a 5th grade group from Marquette Heights out by East Peoria. They were creating a 5th grade collaborative slideshow on conspiracy theories. And so the teacher shared this out with anyone with the link can edit, or everyone in the class could edit it. So they were all editors on it. And then she set it up as a template and allowed the kids to all be in this at the same time, editing about their conspiracy theories. So you can see this was the template that she sent out, numbered all the slides, told all the kids, hey, Brian, you're number 23, Joe, you're number 24. So they would find conspiracy theory number 24, and then she put in the text boxes here, and then the kids were able to fill it out. And when you get done, you have one slideshow that you can present to the group, and every kid can come up and talk about their conspiracy theory. You don't have 23 slideshows that you have to open up and present to the class. So really a cool way to kind of keep everything organized and in one spot. And this is just putting in a text box. So you can insert, we'll just put in a new slide real quick. Just dropping in a text box and then changing the border to something fun like dashed lines. And now you have that kind of fun designated area for the kids to type into. Okay, so again, no real tomfoolery going on with it. It is something that is, just a couple of clicks extra. All right. So that's a really cool example. I guess I jumped over that in my slides there. Oops, I was getting a little click happy. There's a couple of ones here. So I know Nicole shouted out Slides Mania. I'm going to reiterate that. Unbelievable website. This choice board activity is Hyperslides to the max. I found it on Slides Mania, so I wanted to make sure everybody could share it. Basically, it's taking that interlinking of slides to another level to create a choice board inside of a Google slideshow. This is that concept of the Bitmoji classroom that a lot of teachers are using, where you put a virtual picture of your classroom, and kids can click on things and go to that particular thing. It's a choice board, except you're using a classroom instead of a board game looking like this. I just put this one in because I love it, because my kid's 3, so we watch a lot of Sesame Street. This Matthew Meyer submitted this to Slides Mania, and I thought it was just like super cool, so I included it. There's no real like Hyperdoc thing about it. I just thought if there's elementary teachers in here that are teaching about Sesame Street or want Sesame Street, Like, it's just super cool. Like Cookie Monster, Elmo, you know, I don't know, big birds in there. It's just, there's no Hyperdoc about that, but it was just neat. So here's a choose your own adventure example. So again, same thing. When you start with Ernie the egg here, you can choose, does he live in the pond? Does he live in the forest? And then depending on where you choose, you go on a different adventure, but it's all the same slideshow. So you're just clicking inside of the slide and you're just hyperlinking from slide to slide, okay? So here's the link to Slides Mania. I'm going really fast. I got 5 minutes left and I wanna get to this last activity, okay? So, and it's gonna be with maps because this is one that people don't usually know about, okay? Google My Maps is, especially as a history teacher, one of my favorite Google tools, okay? And what it allows you to do is to create a Google map without having to go to Google Maps. So it's actually in your Google Drive. You can create a map like you create a Google Doc. So you go to New, and then More, and then Google My Maps. We're gonna create it. I don't wanna create it in there. Let's go back to my Drive so that way we can do this. So again, New, More, Google My Maps, and you have a blank map that you can put locations on. So I'm gonna ask everybody to do this for me really quickly, okay? And we'll try to do this as fast as we can. I'm gonna put a link into the chat, and I know it's been blowing up, so I appreciate Joe and everybody doing this. And so I see Susan's question right there. Is it an extension or is it for everybody? As long as your domain has it turned on, it's in the Google admin console, okay? So you have to make sure your domain has it turned on, but it is really cool there. So if you don't see it, ask nicely of your tech guy to turn it on. It's just a quick slide of the button, okay? You don't need it for this activity. If everybody could just fill that out, I'm just gonna ask you really quick, where do you teach? And then type in quickly, if you can, your the website for your school, okay? So that's just, we'll try to do this as fast as we can here. So we see we got responses are piling in, which is great. All right. Cool, cool, cool. So as people are doing that, okay, you can see I've got my map here. Okay, we're gonna retitle the map just like you would name a Google Doc. Okay, save it. And then what we're gonna do is, I've got 67. I know we've got 225 people in, but we're gonna have to roll, unfortunately. You should just, Kelly, there should be that link that I just dropped in, and it should open up a Google form. Melissa, you too, that's just that Google form. So you just fill that out. That's all you have to do, just a Google form. And if it's not a pressing matter by any means, so if you don't get it done, not a big deal, because we're almost out of time. So I don't want to go too long, although I'm the last one, so nobody else to jump to. So it's like Wedding Singer. I have the microphone. You'll listen to everything that I say, except Brian could just end the room and then we'd be all out of it. But all right, so here's what we're gonna do. I've got 100 of you in there. That's perfect. Melissa, don't worry about it. It's okay. You can just watch. So what we're doing is we can actually use a Google My Map, okay? So I've got the Google My Map here, and what I'm going to do is actually import all of your responses into the map. So this is an advanced kind of feature. I've got a blog post here on how to do it, okay? So these are 2 links to 2 blog posts that I've written. It'll teach you how to do this, all right? So I've got my responses. The key is to send them to a Google Sheet, okay? So I've got my Google Sheet. I see everybody's responses in here. And then what I'm gonna do is go to my Map, go to import, and again, this is on the blog, so you guys can watch that. I know we're going fast. Go to Google Drive, and then I'm just gonna go to recent because I know it's gonna be one of the most recent files, but I have to look for that spreadsheet. There it is, the name of the spreadsheet where my form responses went. Select it. And then I need to position my place markers. So what this is gonna do is take the location that you guys typed in and drop that in. So I say, where do you live? I should have said, where do you teach? Oops, I got a little crazy with that. And then we're gonna title your place markers with your name, okay? Then we'll hit finish and we'll watch the magic of My Maps hopefully unfold. Bada boom. So we have one person, Dale, It thinks you live in Toulon, France. Okay, so Stark 100, not quite in Toulon, France, but close enough, I guess. But you can see we've got one person here. But they don't live in LaSalle, but they think you actually live in LaSalle. You didn't put IL at the end of it, so it picked you out as living in LaSalle down by Philly. So that's okay. Here we go. Now we've got all of our people from Illinois. And then if I look at all the items here, this will actually show me now over on this side. Once it comes in, I can see all the different spots, and I can click on all the people. And then why this is a Hyperdoc or a hypermap, it's because you guys put the link in. So I can click and find that there's Jessica. She lives in Fisher, or she teaches at Fisher. And now we've got the link to her presentation or to her website. So you've made an interactive clickable map then that you can drop in, and your kids, so think about this. Your kids are studying weather patterns, or your kids are in science class studying different bioecosystems or biomes. They can drop in a presentation or a Google Doc or something into a form about that spot with the location, and then you can open up the map and you can just click on it and then jump to those different presentations. You get a map view for geography purposes, and you get the link to the presentation in one spot. So you don't have to chase through Google Classroom trying to find everybody's presentation. As a history teacher, I love this for talking about Civil War battles. I can drop in all the different locations of different battles of the Civil War. And then when we're talking about the Battle of Chattanooga, I can click on it, open up Brian's presentation on the Battle of Chattanooga, and then click down on Vicksburg and have Joe's presentation about Vicksburg pop up. So you can make your map interactive by just putting in a link in the Google form. So that form takes in that map place marker takes in every single field that was in that Google form. So it's just a really cool way to engage your kids and turn your maps and make them digital. So I see the chat's blowing up. Hopefully everybody's able to to do this. So yeah, very cool. I mean, and again, there is a link here. There's 2 links here to kind of tell you how to do it, and then another blog post on some ideas. 10 different ideas that I've kind of brainstormed about it. It's so neat. Like every time I have a buddy who uses this, his kids make them themselves and they love them. So really cool, thing to check out. So there's that. And then the last thing is, Hyperforms. So you can make interactive Google Forms as well. We don't quite have time to dive into that, but I want to show you the last few slides here, slides 25 and 26. You have a lot of different resources to learn about Hyperdocs. And then this is that Padlet wall that I was telling you about before. This Padlet wall from Carly Mora has so many different examples of how to use Hyperdocs. Like it is huge. So take advantage of it, use it, and all that stuff. And yes, I see Teresa's comment in there, reading my mind. There's more examples here on this slide too. And then this is the link to the slides. I kept you guys over a couple of minutes, so I appreciate that for you guys staying. I'm glad, Candace, you were laughing at my lame jokes. That's what we do, right? All right, so there's the slides. I see people pouring into them. Lots of different ideas for using Hyperdocs. It's so fun, so creative. It really just takes using something that's maybe boring and transforming it into something better. So, all right, with that, thank you guys very much. And Brian, we made it, man. We did it. Yeah.
It's been a great day. It's been a fun day to watch everybody interacting in the chat. It's been awesome sessions. We can't thank you enough for joining us. One thing that I have to say, I kind of lied. I said that the recordings wouldn't be up till tomorrow. They should be posted now that I clicked update on the website. So if you go back to the ltcillinois.org/back2school. Recordings and presentation slides are up for all sessions today. We'll send out PD hours probably starting at the next week because it'll take us a while to get everybody marked as attended. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Ben, thanks for kind of putting this all together. Joe, thanks for hanging out and doing the moderation. I want to also thank Nicole and Holly for also joining us and participating today as well. thank you, everyone. Let us know at the LTC what we can do to help you. We're here to support you as you guys go back to school in whatever shape that looks like. And we know it's changing a lot. So again, thank you so much for attending today. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Stay safe, everyone.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.